Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Vraja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Gaura Haribo, 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 Jai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Om Shabbat Paramahanta Puribhaj Vicharya Ashto Tarasata Shishima Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitya Lila Prabhupada Vishnu Pad Ashto Tarasata Shishima Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Thakur Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vindagi Amacharya Shri Hari Ras Thakur Ki Shadgo Swami Ki प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत राधा शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्णा गोप गोपीनाथ श्यामकुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मायापुर धाम की गंगामाई की यामुनमाई की तुलसी देवी की भक्ति देवी की समबद्ध भक्तवृंद की श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की बृहद मृदंग की Jai Gaur Premanandi. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. So it's again a pleasure to have this opportunity to offer some service to the devotees on this particular channel, network, Sangha, and I hope that Krishna will allow me to say something meaningful. So I'll begin by reading the verse for today and the purport. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 1-18. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ashtapresh Papadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. This time, because the words are very important, and Srila Prabhupada, when he spoke on this verse, he emphasized the word, many of the words. Therefore, I'm going to read this time word for word. But you don't have to repeat it, just read along with me, please. Nashta, destroy. Prayashu, almost to nil. Abhadreshu, all that is inauspicious. Nityam, regularly. Bhagavata, Srimad Bhagavatam, or the pure devotee. Sevaya, by serving. Bhagavati, unto the personality of Godhead. Uttama, transcendental. Shloke, prayers. Bhakti, loving service. Bhavati, comes into being. Naishtiki, irrevocable. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, before I read the purport, I just wanted to very quickly refer to, if I can find it very quickly, the original translation that Prabhupada put in this particular for it here. I can't remember exactly where it is, where I put it. Anyway, I can't find it. I don't want to take up everybody's time by looking for it. But in the original Bhagavatams, the three that Prabhupada brought over, his original translation, he put regularly hearing the Bhagavatam. But then when 1972, Srila Prabhupada gave a class, and Prabhupada said, this means hearing the Bhagavatam regularly. And after that class, Prabhupada said that it should, regular should mean daily. Otherwise, regularly could be, every Janmashtami or, once a lifetime. That's regular. It's all regular. So Prabhupada wanted to make sure that regular meant, just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Kirtaniya Sadahari. So Om Jnanatimidandasya Ganam Jana Shakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mahyam Tarati Swaparantikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pachakine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Shatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashari Gaur Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll just begin with the purport. I just said that because in this particular updated, or some things, of course, some devotees complain that we shouldn't change anything in Srila Prabhupada's books, just exactly as he had it. But how he had it is a difficult thing to establish, because how Srila Prabhupada had the books, he depended very much on editing. And so which edited version is what Prabhupada said? And Prabhupada wanted it to be edited. So anyway, the point is that this was a change that actually Prabhupada made himself. Regular attendance in the classes of the Bhagavatam. The Prabhupada said in that particular class of 72, that every day we are hearing the Bhagavatam. So anyway, let me go to the purport. Here is the remedy for eliminating all inauspicious things within the heart, which are considered to be obstacles in the path of self-realization. The remedy is the association of the Bhagavatas. There are two types of Bhagavatas, namely the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata. Both the Bhagavatas are competent remedies, and both of them, or either of them, can be good enough to eliminate the obstacles. A devotee Bhagavata is as good as the book Bhagavata, because the devotee Bhagavata leads his life in terms of the book Bhagavata, and the book Bhagavata is full of information about the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees, who are also Bhagavatas. Bhagavata, book, and person are identical. So, in a little later on in the Bhagavatam, from what we're reading now, there is a series of verses, very beautiful verses, which are very close. That this was after Sri Narada Muni was had instructed Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva began to meditate, Bhakti Yogena Manasi Samyak Pranihite Male, that Bhakti Yogena, with his mind, and you can imagine the mind of Vyasadeva, his mind so intense, so powerful that it can generate. He's an empowered incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Samyak Pranihite Male, without any contamination, he directly, perfectly meditated on all the instructions that he had been given, specifically meditating on the Bhagavatam, which he had already done, but it didn't have the fullness of Krishna Lila as it has now. And that's what Narada Muni was instructing him on. So Pashat Purusham Purna. And in that meditation, he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Maya Chayada Pashrayam. And he saw Maya, who was at his lotus feet. Otherwise, as we say, as Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita, Daivi Hashim Gunamayi Mama Maya Durataya, Mami Vaye Papadyante, Mayamitam Tarante. The only way you can overcome Maya is by surrendering to Krishna. And some people think surrendering to Krishna is very difficult. But look at surrender. We're always surrendering. We're surrendering to the government. We're surrendering to nature. We're surrendering to the demands of our bodies. So much so that Rupa Goswami says, Kamatmakam Katina Katina Tanita Durni Desha, that we are servants of our senses and servants of our mind. And we're surrendered to our parents, or we're surrendered to our children, we're surrendered to money, we're surrendered to sense gratification. And in those processes of surrender, we do great sacrifices. People, I usually walk in the morning here where I am in South Texas, or wherever I am. I generally, because usually it's hot, and I walk like right after Mangal Arti, or 5 in the morning, 5:30, before the sun comes up, before it gets hot. And I see people rushing out of their house to go to work every day. Sometimes I see the same people, which means this is their sadhana. So what is this problem? What is the problem with surrender? Everyone is surrendered, but they're surrendered to the wrong person. So then Vyasadeva, he thought, Jaya Samohito Jiva Atmanam Jigunatmakam, that people are bewildered by these 3 modes of nature, paropi manyute nartam. But anartha, because of anarthas, although they are para, they are transcendental, they think that they are apara, they think that they are mundane, tatkritam chabipadyate, and therefore they undergo the reactions of material life. But then Vyasadeva came up with the solution. Anartho pashanam sakshat bhakti yogam aduksaje. The solution to get rid of these anarthas which are covering us from our original consciousness is bhakti yoga. And how? But lokasya janato vidvamsh. But the majority of people don't know this. Therefore, chakra sattvata samhita. Therefore, this samhita, this Bhagavatam, is necessary. And then he said, his conclusion was, yasyam by shuyamanayam, simply by carefully hearing this Bhagavatam, Krishna Parama Purushe, we will understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhakti utpadyate pumsam, bhakti will sprout within the heart, and shoka moha bhayapaha. And all shoka, all lamentation, all illusion, all fear, all anxiety will be eliminated, extricated from the heart. So these anarthas, this particular verse in the Bhagavatam is talking about giving up anarthas. And that's why it says that although it doesn't directly mention anarthas, it's speaking of what is the process? What is the means by which we can do it? That was the previous verse. Shrinvatam Swakata Krishna. And how do we come to that point of Shrinvatam, of hearing Swakata? Swakata means that which is spoken by him himself, Well, okay, Bhagavad Gita, Swakata. What about Bhagavatam? Well, Krishna Dvapayana Vyas. It was spoken by Vyasadeva. It was spoken by Vyasadeva before it was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. And so he did speak it. He spoke it to his son within the womb. I mean, he was just reciting Bhagavatam. And Shukadeva Goswami heard it in the womb. It's so powerful, especially when it comes from a devotee. And therefore, even our previous verse, Shushushor Shraddhatanasya, Vasudeva Katha Ruchi, 2 verses before, we spoke about this. How do we get an attraction for hearing about Vasudeva? Swamaha Sebaya Vipra. We offer devotional service to the devotees of the Lord. So there are 2 Bhagavatas, as Srila Prabhupada just explained. Book Bhagavat and person Bhagavat, and they are identical. I'll just read the next part of the verse, the purport, I'm sorry, but I've said this many times, it is so wonderful that I'll repeat it. Srila Prabhupada one time was being picked up from the airport in Calcutta, taken to Mayapur, and the leaders were very concerned. There was like 3 or 4 leaders in the car, and the leaders said that that Prabhupada, there's a devotee in Mayapur, and the only thing he's doing is he's just spending all day reading the Bhagavatam. They were very alarmed. They were thinking, what's going to happen? Everybody's going to be sitting around reading Bhagavatam, and there'll be who will do all the work in Mayapur. The Prabhupada said, oh, Parikshit Maharaj, he was only hearing Bhagavatam. There is some problem. So the devotees were thinking of Prabhupada would chastise his devotee. And then, so they said, but Prabhupada, he's not doing any service. And Prabhupada said, oh, hearing Bhagavatam is not service? Oh yes, Prabhupada, but he's not doing any practical service. Just like one time a devotee was speaking to me, and I said, he was in anxiety. So I said, why don't we read Bhagavatam? And he said, yes, but, I have to deal with reality. I said, well, Veda Vyasta, in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, is Vidyam Vastavam. It says this Bhagavatam is to distinguish reality from illusion. And so he finally accepted. Sometimes we're so stuck in our apparent reality of getting up, going to work, and doing this and doing that, which are all necessary. Everything in life can be offered to Krishna, and that is the whole purport of Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. That you take everything, all these people in the Bhagavatam, there aren't that many great sages. There are more kings, and kings like Yayati, who was so overwhelmed by material desire that he practically became like a goat, and even explained himself like a goat to his wife. It's not the Bhagavatam, it's just all these great saintly sages who are just speaking to one another. But in the Bhagavatam itself, they're struggling to understand the reality of Krishna consciousness. And so finally, they come to that purpose, and we see the struggle they have to go through. So the point is that the Bhagavatam is full of all these accounts of how to become a devotee, and how your ordinary life, kings who are going out conquering, killing people. Arjuna was killing tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of soldiers. And, certainly we see very ordinary types of work, ordinary types of relationships going on in the Bhagavatam. But They learn pure devotion. They come to the point of pure devotion. And that's what we're doing. That's what the whole purpose of the material world. Srila Prabhupada explains that in very much detail in Bhagavad Gita 3:10, especially in the purport. Sahajagya praja prishta puruvacha prajapati anena pasavishadvam eshavo shrishta karma duk. That kama duk, all desires will be satisfied if one engages in yajna. And Prabhupada says this is the perfect arrangement of the Lord. First, he gives us the process of yajna so that by performing yajna, that can create the most favorable material circumstances, for going back home, back to Godhead, not favorable material circumstances for sense gratification. That we do by karma yoga or by karma or by living in this material world and sacrificing. So the point is that this Swakata Krishna has spoken all of this. He has given us all of this. This is the previous verse. So now the means by which we can do it, the possibility is made. It is made possible by the devotees. And where do we find the devotees? We find the devotees in holy places. Of course, nowadays, devotees, just like previously, and throughout the Bhagavatam, there are many places where it recommends that you go to holy places. And of course, the most famous verse toward the end of the 10th canto is Yatma Budhir Kunape Chidaduke, that this material body is just like a bag of three elements, but we worship it. And that the place that I was born, I see it as very special. My wife, children, husband, family, etc., are all very special. And the places of pilgrimage, Salile Natkari Chid Janeshva Fabigeshu Swaeva Gokara. And places of pilgrimage, if you don't go to them with the exclusive idea of hearing from the devotees, just like 1976, Srila Prabhupada came to give the class one morning, and practically no one was there. I was there, and it was probably, maybe like 25 devotees. Usually the whole temple was overrun with devotees. And this was in Vrindavan. Prabhupada said, I have built this temple so that everyone will come and hear. Because everybody had gone on different parikrams that day. And even at that time, parikrams weren't that popular. I mean, of course, they were always there, but it wasn't like nowadays where you have 25 different devotees taking all kinds of different groups around on parikrams. It was like there was one official parikram. Prabhupada would go some of the times, but everybody else would go, and there were no other parikrams. Even Prabhupada himself, when he was to be initiated, Saranga Maharaj was introducing him, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I know him. He likes to hear. Because when he went to Vrindavan, on Vrindavan Parikram, he arrived on the last day of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's presence, or the day before. And the next day was the last lecture. And practically everyone went on Parikram except for Prabhupada and a handful of devotees. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur noticed, and he said, yes, I know him, he likes to hear. And of course, he gave him first and second initiation, which was practically unheard of, because this is the most important thing. So anyway, I'll go on a little bit with the purport. The devotee Bhagavat is a direct representative of Bhagavan, the Supreme Person, the personality of Godhead. So, by pleasing the devotee Bhagavat, one can receive the benefit of the book Bhagavat. Human reason fails to understand how, by serving the devotee Bhagavat or the book Bhagavat, one gets gradual promotion on the path of devotion. But actually, these are facts explained by Sri Narada Dev, who happened to be a maidservant's son in his previous life. The maidservant was engaged in menial service of the sages, and thus he also came into contact with them. And simply by associating with them and accepting the remnants of foodstuff left by the sages, the son of the maidservant got a chance to become the great devotee and personality, Sri Narada Dev. These are the miraculous effects of the association of the Bhagavats. So, Srila Prabhupada, when he explained this verse, he said, here it says, Bhagavata Sevaya, not Bhagavan Sevaya. Generally, we tell everyone, you have to serve Krishna. And it's true. We all have to serve Krishna. So, so this is, but Prabhupada said, it is not Bhagavan Sevaya. The Bhagavan Sevaya is accomplished by Bhagavata Sevaya. So Bhagavata Sevaya means serving the devotee, serving the Srimad Bhagavatam, serving the spiritual master, serving the Sankirtan movement. And Prabhupada specifically said, and distributing books, otherwise distributing the Bhagavatam. Of course, we know now we're a few months away from, or just a month away from Bhadra, the month of Bhadra. And in the month of Bhadra, there's Bhadra Purnima. And in Bhadra Purnima, there's the opportunity to distribute the Bhagavatam. And you get a lot of credit for it. Of course, a pure devotee or one on the path of pure devotion is not doing this to for some credits, not getting some credits. But the reason we do it is because it is very auspicious. Of course, we encourage those who may need those credits. We all need the credits, but those who really need those credits because they're not able to perform devotional service throughout the day. And we'll discuss that a little bit in a couple of minutes. Why not? Because we all should be doing devotional service 24 hours a day. But anyway, so especially for those persons, it's very auspicious. But the main thing is that on that day, the Bhagavatam, if it's given to someone, the giver gets the benefit, and the person who received it gets a great benefit of getting the Bhagavatam on a day when the Bhagavatam itself, just like we tend to chant the holy name more on very holy days, like especially Gaur Purnima, when the holy name in its present most merciful form was manifest through Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or other days, sometimes devotees, devotees, they chant more on Ekadashi, or they chant more on some other auspicious day. So it's not, point is that the Bhagavatam itself becomes more potent on that day to be given, and the people will appreciate that gift more. But the point is that this is all tadiya, because when Srila Prabhupada, when Durga, when she cursed Chitraketu to become a demon, he smiled and he said, "Thank you," folded his hands. She couldn't believe it. And she said, "What? I just told him he's going to be born as a demon, and he's smiling and thanking me." And she said, "What's going on?" And so Lord Shiva, he said, devotees are not fearful of anything. And then he reminded her that previously, when she asked, what is the most elevated activity that one can perform. Just like the whole Bhagavatam begins with that question: what is the Savai Pumso Paro Dharma? What is the Paradharma? And the Paradharma Bhakti Yoga Doksaje. It is devotional service unto the unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he reminded her that she asked, what is the highest? And he said, Aradhananam Sarvasham, of all types of worship. Vishnu Aradhanam Devi. Oh, my dear Devi, worshipping Vishnu is the greatest. But Tasmat Paratara, Tasmat Paratara Devi, but even more than that, Tadyanam Samarchanam. Even greater than that is Tadyanam, is worshiping those things which are related to Krishna. And the thing that is most intimately related to Krishna is his devotee. And of course, that also means serving the Bhagavatam by distributing the Bhagavatam. Just like I was just with Devamrita Swami, and he's telling me about this one devotee and here in the US, Mahotsava Prabhu. When he goes out on Bhagavatam, he has a cart full of sets of Bhagavatam. Like little kids have a wagon. Well, he has his little wagon, but instead of having his toy is the Bhagavatam. And Bhagavatam, and he distributes 500, 600 books a day, sometimes 5 or 8 or 10 sets of Bhagavatams on the street. And this is like people walking down the street, and he sells them a full set of Bhagavatam. So this is Bhagavata Seva. And Bhagavata Seva means also taking care of your children. It means but relating it to Krishna. Not taking care of your children because there's a biological and psychological bond. Because this little body came from my bigger body. It's not, that's there in bears, in many species. The hormonal or the physical, biological bonding, forcing us, inspiring us to take care of children. That's there in so many species. The psychological, which is there more in humans and a little higher species like cows and certain types of animals. But real human beings, they engage, they go beyond the biological and the psychological to the spiritual, to understand this person has been born from my body so that I can give them devotional service. Now, whether they take it or not, that's another thing. But that's with everyone in our life. Even sometimes a husband or a wife will give up devotional service. Or children, Prabhupada, who could have a better father than having Prabhupada as a father? Yet 2 of his sons practically never practiced any form of devotional service. And his daughter did mostly after he left. And that was with Prabhupada. So what to speak of having us as father or mother or whatever. If having Prabhupada, some people couldn't, get out of Maya, so to speak. So it's no wondrous thing. So let me finish the purport. I have a couple other points I wanted to make in relation to all of this. Well, first of all, let me go ahead and finish. These are the miraculous effects of association of the Bhagavatas. And to understand these effects practically, it should be noted that by such sincere association of the Bhagavatas, one is sure to receive transcendental knowledge very easily, with the result that he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord. The more progress is made in devotional service under the guidance of the Bhagavats, the more one becomes fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The message of the book Bhagavat, therefore, the messages of the book Bhagavat, therefore, have to be received from the devotee Bhagavat. And the combination of these two Bhagavats will help the neophyte devotee to make progress on and on. So sometimes people feel that, hey, so-and-so who gives the class, not so advanced, and, temple president here or the local leader is not so inspiring. I'll just read, like this devotee in Mayapur. So Prabhupada, after 3 or 4 times, they tried to convince Prabhupada this devotee was off. And then Prabhupada just turned around and started chanting in the car. And then after about 10 minutes, the devotees were just total anxiety. And then Prabhupada said, but if he is reading Bhagavatam carefully, he will understand he has to perform service. Jai Prabhupada. So, but Prabhupada wanted to make the point that hearing the Bhagavatam is service, not that we in any way, because all other services will become apparent by chanting the holy name, by serving the devotees, and by hearing the Bhagavatam. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, of all types of devotional service, the 5 most important ones are beginning with Vaishnava Seva. First, having the association of devotees, Sadhu Sangha. And then the next most important thing, Sadhu Sangha, Krishna Katha, speaking and hearing about Krishna and chanting the holy name. And then Bhagavata Sevaya, serving the Bhagavatam. Otherwise, when we hear Bhagavatam, we should understand this is a service. I'm purifying myself. I'm getting rid of these anarthas. Actually, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains this series of verses in terms of getting rid of anarthas. He said, just like the first, we have this progression given by Jiva Rupa Goswami, where he says, Adau Shraddha Ta Sadhu Sangha Ta Bhajana Kriya. These are the first 3 things. So this was covered in previous verses, which we've already spoken about. The first thing, you get some initial faith, which comes from knowledge of the Bhagavatam, which is just like a sword that cuts away the ignorance. So this initial faith, and then association with devotees. Shan Mahat Sevaya Vipra. Hearing. Association with devotee means hearing from devotees. That is real association. Association means Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu. And then Shmaranam. Then we're able to remember. When we hear, therefore, Krishna himself says, Machchita Matkata Pranam, Bodhyanta Parasparam, Patyantas Chamam Nityam, Tushanti Cha Ramanti Cha. That a devotee's heart is totally immersed in Krishna consciousness, and therefore they're very anxious to sit together and to hear about Krishna and to speak about Krishna. So this is to inquire about Krishna and to speak about Krishna. So these are the main activities that we perform. And when we do this, then the Bhagavatam, and of course, here we have the famous classic example, which Srila Prabhupada gives so many times, of Narada Dev, where his mother is a maidservant of great devotees. And he's the maidservant's son. Because he's the maidservant's son, he is he's helping her, taking their remnants. But taking the remnants didn't mean that he took a piece of samosa or a little bit of sabji or dal. It means he did that also, but he listened to their talks. He was there. He was close by. He heard what they were speaking. just like in the original hearing of the Bhagavatam, it's a conversation between Shukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj. But thousands of devotees are hearing. So whenever we see Krishna Katha going on, we should want to hear. Sometimes it's not possible, but whenever it's possible, we should do it. This was the Vedic culture. Prabhupada said one time that in the Vedic times, people would work 4 to 6 months a year, and the rest of the time they would spend in pilgrimage. Otherwise, the time of planting or planting everything and the time of harvesting. So that's like 2 or 3 months. Each one is 2 or 3 months. And then the rest of the time, people would be on pilgrimage. And all the roads and pathways were full of fruit and nut trees so that people could just, and that's how the British, when they tried to destroy the culture, when they first came to India, they cut down all these fruit and nut trees that were everywhere. Because, people had so much to eat, they didn't have to worry about working so hard. So it was like a very unfortunate thing. So people would regularly, they would see something going on, they would sit down and hear. And this was like considered to be very important. Even I remember the first times I went to India, anytime we would be together, a couple of devotees, we would have 50, 60 people standing around us, trying to see what we're doing. This curiosity, this desire. In the beginning of the 10th canto, the 4th verse, a very beautiful purport, I think it's like 5 or 6 pages long, by Srila Prabhupada, the 4th verse, 1st chapter. And he says, even though the Vedic culture has become so degraded, still everyone in India knows that they're not this body. And whenever there is a pandal or some event, thousands of people will come. So Prabhupada was glorifying the remnant, even that remnant of Vedic culture that exists. So, Sri Narada Muni, he became purified. And it says here, he had the chance to become the great devotee and personality, Sri Narada Dev. The miraculous effects of associating with devotees, and therefore, and therefore, there's a verse spoken by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula Hoy Sadhu Sangha. That the main cause of Krishna Bhakti Janma Mula, the main cause is Sadhu Sangha. Krishna Prema Janme. And even after Krishna Prema has manifested in the heart of the devotee, Tena Punya Mukhya Anga, that still the association is the main means by which advancement in spiritual life, even when one is the platforms of Krishna Prema, associating with devotees is still the main principle. It is still what a devotee wants to do. It's so important, the association with devotees. I wanted to go just back to the verse and just very quickly. Nashta prayeshu. Prayeshu means almost to nil. Almost to nil. Well, why, if it says here, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki, irrevocable devotional loving service comes into becomes manifest. So how can it be almost? Srila Prabhupada explains, first of all, that Prabhupada says when around 75% of the anarthas have been cleared away, then that's 75%. This is called the platform of Nishta, Otherwise, this verse is speaking about nishta, naishtiki, irrevocable. Otherwise, nishta bhakti means although there could be a fall down in nishta, it's not very common. There could be a fall down in rati, but it would even be less common. There could be a fall down in asakti, which would be even less common. There can even, in some rare cases, be a fall down in Bhava Bhakti, like in the case of Jad Bharat, the case of Bilba Mangala Thakur. Of course, those were instructive fall downs. They were planned by the Yogamaya potency. But the point is, it can happen. But here it says, Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki, irrevocable. That this devotee, once they get to this point, approximately 75% of their anarthas are gone. Then devotional service becomes irrevocable. You can't take it away. It will not disappear. It will not, it may become a little, covered over by our material desires, but it will never go away. And generally, nishta means that you're fixed. You're fixed. You do sadhana bhakti. You like sadhana bhakti. You're happy. You're happy serving Krishna. It is your main activity. It is the main thing you do in your life. And so this is what naishtiki. So prayashu. So there's several. So Prabhupada said that prayashu means that the majority of disturbances have cleared away from the heart. The majority of them are gone. And so, this is one understanding. Jiva Goswami gives an interesting understanding. He says, prayashu means that even though there are still some anarthas there, bhakti can flow. Bhakti is so powerful that even if there's still some tendency toward material desire or material activity or material consciousness, some little desire may be there. Bhakti can accumulate. It can go on. It can manifest in the heart. Whereas on the process of gyan, one must have eliminated all impurities. Otherwise, you will not be able to go on. This was illustrated by the story of Satyavan. He was a young man. He went to Gautama Muni and he said, I want to be your disciple. And of course, Gautama Muni had a very high standard. He said, you have to tell me whose gotra your father is in. Otherwise, he would only accept Brahmin children. So what is your father's gotra? What Brahmin lineage does he come from? So he said, I will check with my mother. So he came back a little later. And so Gautama Muni said, so what is your gotra? And he said, I asked my mother, but she doesn't know. She's not sure who my father is. And Gautama Muni immediately said, you are my disciple because you are truthful. That's the sign of a Brahminically minded person is they're always truthful. So he wasn't fully qualified, so to speak, but he was fully qualified because he wanted to advance in devotional service. He wanted to become a devotee. So Nashta Prayashu means that devotional service is so powerful. Just like Kapila Dev said to his mother, Madguna Shruti Matrena, that by hearing about my qualities and by being absorbed in hearing about my qualities, Mai Sarva Guhashaye, all that is there within the heart, the supersoul, will be revealed. Manogatir avichchina, and the mind will proceed with great force Yata Gangam Vaso Buddha. Just like the Ganga, just like Ganga Devi, uh, Ganga Devi, uh, she flows toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like um, the Ganga. Lakshanam Bhakti Yoga, all the wonderful qualities of devotional service become manifest. Nirgunasya Yudahritam. And nothing is left out. Ahaitu Yavyavyaita Yabhaktir Purushottame. No one can stop the forceful power of devotional service. No one can stop it. No one can detain it. No one, it's uninterrupted by any material condition, just like the Ganga cannot be stopped. This is the whole thing. And devotional service becomes manifest. Jiva Goswami spoke especially on this particular verse from the Bhagavatam, that it becomes manifest by three things happening simultaneously. Bhakti Parushanu Bhava Viraktir Anyatra Chaishaktrika Ekakala. That the Bhagavatam says that Bhakti Para Isha Anubhava, becoming enlivened by the knowledge of devotional service, and Virakti, detachment from the material world. These three things happen simultaneously in the process of surrender. Prapadyamanasya Yatashnata Syu, just as in the process of eating Tushti Pushti Kshudapayo Nughasam, just as when we eat, there's satisfaction immediately. When the taste tastes good, I immediately feel strength, and I'm not hungry. But Jiva Goswami makes the distinction that after some time, you'll get hungry again. But after you take up the process of devotional service, you'll always be anxious for more, but you'll always be satisfied at the same time. So he said, this is Parisha, Para Isha Anubhava. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in another place, said that Parayashu means that because devotional service is ever increasing, that you will never, it's almost always there, but it's never always there because there's always more. Otherwise, you always get more and more and more and more. So therefore, it's never fully 100% manifest. And therefore, so it's in one sense, it's all 100, it's 100%, but there's more than 100% there. So there's always more and more and more. So anyway, these are some thoughts on this particular verse and how this is a progression. And the next 3 verses, they explain more the mechanism, what's happening, what's going on. Otherwise, once you get to this point, and the next verse speaks more about, and we'll get into it. Once you get rid of the ignorance, then you become established in real happiness. And that real happiness establishes one in pure devotional service. And then those things we can talk about in the future. So I'll stop here. These are some thoughts on this verse. And, are there any questions, comments? Yes.
Often it's said that first there's faith and then there's association of devotees, but it seems that often it's the association of devotees that makes the faith grow stronger. Can you comment on that?
Well, certainly association with devotees usually takes place first, because at least some preliminary association. We get a book. Somebody's in the university. They get some prasadam from the prasadam table, or some Harinam Sankirtan. But that's not. That helps establish the initial faith by getting the taste of prasadam. Just like when I was first coming to devotional service, I was on a strict, only ate fruit and nuts. And devotees were trying to get me to eat these cooked foods. I said, no, cooked food is all, it's not, it brings consciousness down. And so, so they gave me some offered fruits, but then one day somebody convinced me, just take a little bit of this samosa, And I took some and I ate about 18 samosas after that. I think I doubled over from not having eaten grains for quite a long time. But that's the power of prasadam. So the point is that we get even the introduction, or even that introductory faith we get from the association of devotees. That's how important it is. But when we seek that association, that is sadhu sangha. When it seeks us, then that is a dao shraddha. That is when the initial faith, because we read a book, because the prasadam overwhelms us, because the sound of the Harinam just, takes us into the Vaikuntha region for a few minutes, and something, so when it looks for us, that is a dao shraddha. And when we look for it, that is sadhu sangha.
Thank you. That's nice.
Any other question or comment?
Please feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions, comments, takeaways, appreciations, anything you would like to share.
Yes, any realizations? I'm also here to learn. One Vaishnava said, when you stop learning, you stop advancing. So, yes, Bhagavan Narada.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, my obeisances. One thing that I've brought up in the past, and I'm starting to see it, it's just completely integrated into our society, is social media, of course, but like, at what point, like, it can get a little bit watered down where it's like, I've even caught myself doing it too. It's like we do a program, you post a picture, somebody sells a book, they post a picture with the person that they gave the book to. Somebody taught somebody how to chant Hare Krishna, then they put the camera in front of their face while they're chanting for the first time. And sometimes these people are kind of caught off guard or feeling awkward, and the devotees aren't engaging it properly. So it's like, at what point do we just need to like not do that so much, or be more aware about it and have those conversations within our communities? Because it can kind of be counterproductive if we're not sensitive. But at the same time, we have to be relevant and keep up with the standards that society has given us within social media and outreach.
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, I was with one person in Los Angeles who was a movie star. And so we walked out of the temple and he said, so aren't you going to take a picture? So everybody, when they're with me, they take a picture. And I said, well, I don't want to, I don't want to take advantage. I'm here to serve you, And so, I'm sure that some people would be happy to see, it would encourage them if that's okay. I said, yeah, go ahead. So I took a picture. I didn't send it anyway. As a matter of fact, I never did anything with it. But the point is that if you want to do something like that, like we had one devotee, when the Pope came to Mexico, I sent one devotee to give him a Bhagavad Gita. And there was a picture taken by by the Pope's camera person, and they sent it out. No, we didn't send it. I told them specifically, if you get a picture of you with the Pope, don't start sending it out to everyone and just burn out our relation, this budding relationship that because they sat and talked for about 5 minutes. And so the point is that if you want to do something like that, you have to ask the person, can I take a picture with you? And this will encourage people to take these books, seeing the happiness you're feeling. So the point is, I understand and I agree with you that it can be counterproductive. So we should ask the person if it's okay, if they feel good about it, and then we won't burn them out.
How does that affect our personal growth? I read some purport. I forgot where I was with some devotees, and Prabhupada was basically saying that we shouldn't be broadcasting things like this. So does it stunt our growth, or what happens? Is it offensive to that person? Is that jiva aparad if we're just
Well,
kind
it
of
could
sharing
be
them?
if you don't ask them, or if you like, just like there was one girl, I can't remember his name, Annie something. She was a famous singer, and she was like a girlfriend with a devotee, and so the devotees convinced him, no, all these young people will be super enlivened by seeing her. And she got totally burned out. She gave him up. She gave up Krishna consciousness. So that's when it becomes counterproductive, when it's not done with sensitivity. Otherwise, we're not propagandists. But Prabhupada met famous people, and we promoted it all over, and Prabhupada didn't complain about it because it made Prabhupada's position, meeting all these big professors and scholars and intellectuals and political people and religious leaders. So it made Prabhupada's position more prominent. So anything that contributes, but we have to always be sent. Yeah, there it is. Annie Lennox. Yeah, that was the lady. So, so the point is that we have to be, sensitive to the individual, not just thinking that I can do anything for Krishna and that's okay. So here's a question. Please advise about taking association from devotees who are more advanced and also alike us, and also what it means by giving association. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by devotees. You mean maybe you mean like-minded. This is a written question. Yes, that's advised by Rupa Goswami, like-minded devotees. But that means when Rupa Goswami says something like that, like people who are in the same rasa, we're talking about people who are already on the platform of Bhava Bhakti, and therefore they know that what is their rasa, and therefore they associate with people of the same rasa. But for devotees who are not so advanced, which is the great majority of us, it means like-minded means those who like to serve Krishna in the same way. Like pujaris may feel more enlivened to associate with pujaris, or people who really like to sit down and hear, they should associate with one another. Just like Srila Prabhupada says, I think it's the beginning of the 9th chapter of the 10th canto. Our Mother Yashoda is churning the butter. And Prabhupada says there, anyone who is attracted to Vatsalya Ras should meditate on this vision. So it doesn't mean, oh yeah, I think, yeah, that sounds good. I like Vatsalya Ras. It's not like that. It's not some, just like I read the other day that there's young people nowadays with all the confusion going on in social ambience, that they're thinking Well, I don't know. I don't really like being a girl. I think I'd like to be a boy. I don't like being a boy, like 11 or thinking about getting a sex change just because of this neoliberal way of thinking. So it's not like that in devotional service. Yeah, I kind of like Vatsalya Ras. Sounds good to me. Or yeah, I'd like to be a gopi. So let me associate with people who, it's not some speculation. It means those who are in dasya, who are doing the same kind of dasya, the same kind of service, like serious dedicated service to the deities, or serious dedicated sankirtan, or serious family life, sitting together, grihastas, discussing how to keep our families more Krishna conscious. That's what it means on our platform. And what does it mean by giving association? It means that we see people who need Krishna consciousness, and or someone is asking a question or something, then we give association. Generally, you give association through inquiry, or through distributing books or distributing prasadam. That is giving association. I hope that's satisfactory. Any other question, comment? Seems like everybody's satisfied, tired, hungry, or some condition is there. And so thank you all very much for your kind attention and for your desire to hear and do these wonderful programs. I hope you keep it on forever, or at least up until the time when as long as you're around, all of you, and keep it going and instill it in the next generation. Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.